And we're gathered on Harold's second trip to Oregon in 1995. He's going to be here from the 23rd of August to the 29th
Right.
of August. And we're playing a little tennis, and we're playing a little pool.
A lot of pool.
And he has gotten considerably more rambunctious at his pool since the last time he was here. He hits the bar a lot harder. I don't know if that really means anything. But anyway, but it got real hot. Pretty soon it was 5 to 5, and I said, that's it, we quit. And we're having Helen's good breakfasts here, and we had a good dinner the other night, and then we're going over to, well, that's pretty much the situation. So now anyway, we have to get some laughs in here. So I made a
That shouldn't be too hard.
I made a new list of items. I got
Very good time.
32 items on this list, and I was checking off the items from the last time. And the first item on the list says the horrors of the third stage are upon the terrified victim. And Harold thinks that we've had that in there before.
Well,
And so that's a story that involves Martin and Hal.
I'll tell that story.
Okay.
I don't know if it's
Well, need a rest anyway.
Okay, well, at our home, I don't remember exactly what places, but we had these two books. And one of them was called What Every Christian Young Man, I think, Ought to Know. The other one was What Every Christian Woman Ought to Know. Big, fat, authoritative things. And of course, it covered all the important subjects. And it's horribly outdated. And we got such a bang out of it because it tried to terrify you into purity by telling all the terrible diseases. And our favorite was the one about gonorrhea. And it described what it went through. And then it said, and our favorite line was, and now the horrors of the third stage are upon the terrified victim. By this time, of course, you were going to swear off women for the rest of your life.
Martin and Harold, at their young ages, were reading this stuff. I didn't even know about it. That's what's
Oh,
funny.
it's wonderful. Was it?
I mean, I must have had been a whole different world from you
And
guys.
that-
Why didn't you share this? You and Hal, you and Martin used to share things apparently that you never shared with me. I don't understand that.
You were gone. You were always gone. You left home at an early age, and
That's right.
you were not around.
I think that was a traumatic thing for you when I left, because I think you kind of had held me in some esteem in those days.
Oh, I certainly, contrary to now, of course. But,
That's what I'm afraid of. See, we got to get to the bottom of these things.
but anyway, no, I didn't feel so bad when Harvey left, but when Martin left too, see, then all that was left at home was these young girls, these sisters of mine that I could tease and torture. And I felt very abandoned and lonely. So,
Did you really?
Yeah. But to get
No,
back,
are we going to make this?
but to get back to this book, though, I got to finish the book first.
Yeah, right.
They had all these. Of course, to think about sex at all, obviously, was
Oh, yes.
a very dangerous thing
Oh,
to do.
yes, indeed.
So they had all these cures for when your mind traveled in that direction.
Uh-huh.
Everything from cold showers, sprinkling cold water on your privates, and of course, if you're that preoccupied, you're a goner anyway. So it was.
I had no idea you were that obsessed with the subject as a young boy.
It was just so.
Maybe
funny.
that's what Pa meant when he said, "Have you any idea what's wrong with Harold?"
Well, anyway.
Because all he did was eat soda crackers and walk around with his butcher knife.
And read comic books.
What butcher knife?
Well, you threw a butcher knife in the kitchen.
Oh,
once.
get out of here.
Yes, you did.
Well, I may have, but I didn't carry it around all the time. I'm not the axe murderer either.
Well, I don't know. But
Well,
I tell you, I was even terrified of you because you had such a temper.
Oh, I had a temper for it, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
But we've gone through that before. What else is next on your list there?
Well, we're not quite done with that subject,
Yes,
I don't
we are.
think. No, yes, I think this is where we should bring in the fact that we used to use different words for different things,
Oh.
like fit. Now, we don't use, Helen's even forgotten what that is and what that meant, but we use words like that.
We thought fit. I don't know what we thought it meant, but it.
You go crazy.
No, it referred to a woman's private parts.
Oh, for,
Oh,
It
no.
did too. Absolutely, because you remember,
No.
you spotted it now when I mentioned it earlier.
I didn't think that was,
I brought it up, you said that's a dirty word.
Yeah, but it has something to do with sex, we thought.
It did, and definitely have something to do with
Well, in
sex.
our brains it did, yeah.
I'll tell you, that's exactly what it referred to.
Oh,
well, which
And-
dictionary were you looking at?
maybe,
No, it was a word we came up with as kids.
maybe to each his own,
But anyway, when I told this to you, when I mentioned this earlier,
Yeah.
because I had it on my list last time, and I noticed we hadn't covered it, see, that's why I brought it up this morning.
That's right.
And when I brought it up this morning, you immediately said that's a dirty word. And I said, that's exactly right.
No,
Because it was a word we
we-
used as kids. Now, I'm older than you, and I
Now,
know.
wait a minute now.
And then you went on to tell this story about this psychiatrist, and I think that's where you should put that in, right here.
Oh, my goodness.
That-
It is a funny story, but it has a point to it, of course.
Well, it fits right in with what I'm talking about. and
No, but the idea was, we thought somehow fit was a dirty word, I don't, and so, of course, we found in the magazine, this big ad that says, keep fit. And we thought, my goodness, here it is. So we were
Pornography.
running around showing it to everybody.
So there you are.
You can
It
see
proves
it.
my point.
You can see how warped we were, but.
But anyways.
No, there's this cute story about, and of course it has a point to it, I guess. About this guy who goes to the psychiatrist because he's having problems. And so the psychiatrist says, well, let me give you a little test here. Well, I'll draw some pictures and you tell me what it suggests. So the psychiatrist makes an X and he says, what does that make you think of? He says, sex. Then he draws a circle and he says, what does that make you think of? Sex also. And then he just makes a point, a dot. What does that make you think of? Sex. The psychiatrist puts his pencil down and he says, well, obviously I know what your problem is. You're obsessed with sex. And he says, me? Who's drawing all those dirty pictures?
That's hilarious. I really like that joke. You know, we should have had a camera going last night. We were down in Grace's because there were a lot of stories told, and some of them were pretty good.
Yeah, well, it gets to be.
Can you remember the best one that you told last night from down there?
No,
Did you tell some?
I don't remember.
Well, he's not very inspired.
He doesn't remember a thing about last night.
I can remember the one I told.
No, but this has got to be historical stuff here.
Not necessarily.
We can't just tell
What we had
jokes.
really originally planned, and I forgot to say it in the introduction because I'm not a very good publicist.
Would you get my address book over? That's where you wrote everything down.
No, he's got it in.
Well, we got some there. We'll get that later. But because we had planned for this third session, we're going to try to make this thing of commercial quality sooner or later, and we're working toward that. But I am not a very good thing in front of me.
We don't have a sponsor yet.
But anyway,
There's a controversy over
Anyway.
this. Helen and I think we got too much of this already. Nobody wants to look at it, but he wants to make another. We already got two tapes.
we
of
have
this.
several purposes for this activity.
Okay.
One of which was
To explore
originally,
your traumas.
yes, to get all my traumas lined up so that I can eliminate them. See, and once we're through with mine, then we can get on with Martin's and yours and everybody else's. Alan's probably got a bunch too, if in fact. if the
Oh, no,
truth
I
is
forgot
known.
them all. I forgot them all.
Because this kind of reminds me of when we started playing tennis yesterday, and I was ahead of them 5-2 games in the first set. We only sat and played. And I said, well, this is kind of starting to bother me because I can't stand to have a brother minister who's got a complex. And he says, well, I've got a few others anyway, so, or something. How did you say? I already have a 4 or 5 or something.
Oh, he thought I would get a complex
Yeah.
if I lost. And I said, don't worry, I already got several of them anyway, so.
Right.
Let's get on with the program.
Okay,
here.
now, I got to get my pencil here so we can check these off as we go along.
Time's a
I'm going
waste.
back to the beginning. What do you mean times? You want to get out to play pool, I know.
Or tennis.
Or tennis? Why are you got to sit on tennis?
Oh, we're getting good.
Oh, we're not either. Tennis, we're really awful. Tennis. Besides, look, we can't, our hearts aren't that strong.
Harvey thinks he's not long for this world because he says in the morning his heart's starting to flip-flop.
I said flutter.
I said mine's been fluttering for years, don't worry about it.
Now, I want to mention a couple of things. I don't know if I I don't know if I put this on a previous tape or not, but it goes back to Grandpa J.S. Christensen that many of us thought an awful lot of. He had his problems, as we all do, but he was always very good to me, and I think I was the oldest boy, and so he kind of took me on.
I'm sure
And then
you
also
were.
I was very frugal, just like he was, because every time he gave me money, he says, "Well, you know what to do with it." And he meant by that, you stuff it away, keep it. And but anyway, one day when he came over, when I was working at Oscar Erickson's, he came over. I remember it was in Oscar's barn, and he came down, and I don't know why, what the subject was brought it up, but he said to me, she says, "Just remember this." He says, "Time heals all wounds." And then he quoted some poetry, and I can't remember who it was, but
What was he talking about, Lucille?
Helen, you said the naughty word.
That's the N-word.
That
The L word.
is a trauma which we're not.
Is that an N-word?
That is an N word, and you
Yeah,
are
word.
absolutely right, and we're not going to get into that trauma today, because that one.
No, but why would he say that to you?
Well, I'm curious too, whether I was downhearted that day or what the deal was. But anyway, he told me that, and then he said also, I always remember this poetry, and it went like, "Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream, for the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem."
That's it, huh?
That was what it's. Do you know what that's from?
No.
I thought you were an authority on poetry.
It's a famous poem, but I don't know where. Sounds like a Longfellow or somebody.
Well, it's just too bad that we didn't, the next subject on my list here, and it's just too bad we didn't cover this a few minutes ago, because I don't want anybody who sees this to think that we dwell on these subjects.
He's going back to.
Well, because we never did talk about the fact that we used numbers for certain bodily
Well,
functions.
everybody does that.
Oh, they do not. Do you ever heard anybody refer to number 1 and number 2?
Oh, in school all the time.
Really?
Absolutely.
Not so much anymore, I guess.
I don't.
No,
think
they're
so.
so
I
vulgar
think
now,
that
they
was
just say it
peculiar
right
to
out.
our
Certainly don't
family.
need to dwell on that. Let's go on. Let's plunge. Moving right along.
Well,
Moving right along.
I can see that he's hiding something.
Oh, yeah.
He's hiding something. We're getting
Not
to the
this
truth
family.
here.
This family doesn't hide too
It
much.
kind of reminds me of this Clinton thing when they went into this Foster's office and took those files out of there, and one of the guys at the Justice Department said to Bernie Nussbaum on the phone, he says, "Bernie," he says, "are you trying to hide something?"
Oh, yeah.
And Bernie Nussbaum gets in front of in the hearings in the Congress, and they ask him, "Do you remember, whatever his name was, asking you, Bernie, are you trying to hide something?" "No, I don't remember that." Can you? Well, we didn't want to get into politics, but that ought to say something. Karen will probably get mad now if we do this up, because anyway. Okay.
You put on here that Saturday we're going to celebrate Karen's 50th birthday.
Right.
And
She doesn't know
surprise.
it either.
Gonna be
By the
surprised.
time she sees this, she will know that we knew and she did not know. Of course,
Well,
she's pretty
kn-
smart.
knowing her, she probably does
Knowing
know.
her, I suspect that she knows something is up.
Moving right along.
Did we ever tell about that one where I told you about that guy in the ship who was from the South, and he was talking about Christians and their problems with sex and stuff, and he said that his Catholic priest had, I guess it was a Catholic priest that said to him that he said, "Well," he said, "my people make pretty good Christians when they get their fires banked."
Yeah, we don't have that on. That's good.
Did we have that in there?
Mm-mm.
Okay, now, the other item I have here is the time when Pa and I, we call him Pa. I always write down Dad, remember, we all call him Pa.
Oh, yeah.
Pa and I, he and I seemed to go to town a lot, just the two of us, in Summerton particularly. And I remember this one time, there was some kind of a picnic, a church picnic, or a group that he knew anyway that was having a picnic at Sibley Park. So instead of going home the direct route, he went that other route, which went through Sibley State Park, and then we stopped, he knew they were gonna have ice cream and cake and stuff, and so he wanted to stop and have some. And I was so afraid of people that I didn't want to get out, even though he was there. I stayed in the car. As I recall, I stayed in the car. You know, when I tell Helen, and I've told her this many times, that I'm basically afraid of people, she doesn't understand. She thinks that's crazy because of my career and everything. But I told her I did that because I had to do it. I had to make a living and so forth. But going through the Navy and see, we're getting into my traumas. That's what I want.
That's why he just loves this place, because there's so many doorways to just slip out of when he sees somebody coming down the hall.
Skirt down here and I go down that way. And okay, anyway, that gets us to that item. Now,
Say, I'll slip in something here.
well, yes, it's about time.
We had I just came from a week at Tuscarora in Pennsylvania there with the pastors and wives and stuff. And they came up with this idea that they wanted all the kids who were raised as preachers' kids to tell what their experiences were and what was good and what was bad, and how, you know, so they could raise their own kids and maybe spare them some of these problems.
Yeah.
And so we were told, you know, what were your experiences? Was it hard for you and stuff like that? So I filled out one of these things, you know, and I basically said, it was basically a positive experience. And they said, you know, was it hard being a pastor's kid? And I said, well, you know.
PK, they used to call it.
PK, they're still young. And I said, well, it was both good and bad. Some people picked on you. I remember bullies picking on me because I was a preacher's kid.
Mm-hmm.
But on the plus side, you had people who treated you nice and even gave you things because you were the pastor's kid. So that was kind of nice, too. And as far as, you know, being with your dad, you know, they had this idea that they never see your dad, you know, because he's gone all the time. But a pastor is around more than can be, especially if they're right next door to the church. Mm-hmm. And I remember Dad being around a lot. In fact, we even went visiting with him sometimes. He'd take us along, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
And there were some periods, though, of course, when Dad was sick, which wasn't too good. And then, of course, when he was in Canada for a year, he was away for a whole year almost. That wasn't too good. But generally speaking, I had to say that it was a positive experience. And, of course, our spiritual heritage is what is precious, I think, to all of us, you know. The fact
It is
that,
now, but at the time, it created a lot of pressure.
Yeah, there was pressure. But you know, there are other kinds of pressures too in life.
Oh yeah, it was a good pressure, and we reap the benefits now. But at the time, it wasn't always that pleasant, because I lived in mortal fear lots of times at these prayer meetings and stuff that he was going to call on me, and I wanted to make a good impression, and I didn't know what to say or anything else, you know, and I probably I don't know if I was a believer then or not.
Well,
I think I probably was, but anyway, and I know the first time I went to Canada to visit when they were up there, that I was a believer, and I was very much impressed with my heritage and my upbringing and how indebted we were to our parents. But the problem with it was that I was so emotional about the thing that with the first time he called on me, it wasn't a very big meeting either. I don't think there were more than 5 or 10 people there probably all together, sitting in the front of that.
it doesn't matter.
It was probably a Sunday evening. Was it Sunday evening?
It was a Sunday evening.
Yeah.
And I don't think you were there, Helen.
No,
I don't
of
know
course
how
not.
many of the rest of the family were there. I don't think quite a few of the kids and stuff were there, fortunately, to see this spectacle, because it was pathetic. And I was the first one he called on, see? And I marched right up the front, you know, and started talking about this. And about the third sentence, I started talking about how much we owe to our wonderful parents for our Christian upbringing, and that just brought tears to my eyes. That's all there was to it. And that was the end of the thing. I just had to go and sit down. And of course, Pa was nonplussed, because he didn't have anything quite ready to go that fast.
That reminds me of Helen, because Helen, she had to do a lot of giving testimonies and singing too and stuff, and we got a lot of blessing out of that. But she got so mad because every time she would start crying, right?
Absolutely.
She got so mad.
Why would you start crying? I don't understand why.
Probably nerves.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
I think it was. I think it was
isn't
nerves, because I was deathly afraid of public speaking, always have been.
No, I don't think that was her. I think it was more emotional.
No, I think it's a combination. I think the fear of public speaking, because I knew that this was coming up, and I can remember how worried I was about it before it happened. I mean, it was on my mind quite a bit those days.
Well, if you were at a meeting and Paul was there, you knew you'd get called on. It was just one of those things.
Now, Helen responded a lot better than I ever did to this.
How do you know? You weren't there.
Well,
I was. I heard some of them.
yeah, I think Helen had much better command. She was always more facile with the words anyway.
What I couldn't figure out was when he had me sing, and I am not a singer.
Oh, you did fine. Oh, here's one. Do you remember standing around the piano on the farm or wherever it was, maybe Canada, and you girls had gotten this song, Safe Am I?
Yes.
And you harmonized this thing, and you sang that thing over and over and over again just for the fun of it. Safe am I, in the hollow of his hand.
I learned that at Fergus.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Fergus Falls, yeah. And then Shelter Door,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that had something to do with a door. Shelter Door. I never could figure that out. Shelter Door.
Well, I tell you, I don't know how you ever
That
made
was-
it into the ministry with all the handicaps you've had.
That's a handicap.
Yeah, thinking it was door instead of hole.
Well, that's the same.
That was supposed to have been an attempt at humor. I wasn't trying to put
Well,
you down.
that's the same as round yon virgin, mother and child. I thought that was all one word too, and I didn't know what it meant. Round yon virgin. Okay, what's next? Let's move on here. It's done.
I can tell he doesn't like this at all.
Well, we've done so many of these.
What do you mean? You mean you don't like to do this anymore? Is that what you're trying
Why,
to
we've covered it.
say?
I would
Pretty
think
much.
so too.
Did I ever? I've got this down here now. I don't know whether we covered it or not, but it's quite important. Because Pa once asked me. He said, "Was there ever a time on the farm when you doubted that I was a Christian?" He said to me. And I told him, "No, there's never a time." But
Nope, I
there's
never doubted
breakdown
it
or
either.
whatever.
Why would he ask that, I wonder?
Well,
You sure
I think that there could be a lot of reasons why.
He sure had some low moments, I'll tell you that. That's for sure.
Oh, I think it was probably during that period of nervous breakdown.
Yeah, he was in pretty bad shape there for a while.
Now, enemy is in front of you.
That's right.
It's bad news.
I crossed this out because you.
Okay, did she ever come in the house?
Well,
No, we're talking about I was trying to remember the name of the girl that lived 2 houses down from us when we lived in
St.
Paul when I was a junior in high school, because she used to come over and play catch with us in the backyard, and I think she was just kind of sweet on me.
But Mom never let her in the house?
sure she was.
And you said that she never came in the house, and I think,
I don't remember that girl at all.
well, Helen said she never came in the house, or one of you said, and I said, I don't think she did, because my mother was suspicious of her.
Well, I remember the man.
See, the laughs are all gone now, a little while ago.
Oh, they'll come up. Dr. Mann lived next door, of course, and
Well, they
and
won't
then
get
on
any
the other
laughs
side,
out of that.
on the other side, there was no. On the other side, there was some old ladies, old maids, and they always had me going to the store.
Why, of course they
They
did.
would send me to the store for getting various things that I didn't know anything about. Split peas for split pea soup and stuff. And I had the worst time getting the right stuff.
Well, it probably
I'd
was
come
good
back
training for you.
Come back and they'd say, Harold, your mind doesn't work too good sometimes, does it? I'd come back with the wrong thing all the time. And of course they'd give me a quarter, I'd go on this bike. They gave us a bicycle. All the tires were flat. It had been sitting in the garage for 20 years. And they gave it to us for nothing, but we bumped the tires up and they stayed up. One tire, I remember, was black and the other one was red. We took it with us to Frontier, and when we left Frontier, I sold it to one of the boys there in Nestagards, I think. And
No kidding.
that's what happened to that bike. And then when we came out to to Woodburn, of course, I had to get a new one. And of course, Ralph Unseth had a bike that he didn't need anymore. And of course, in order to buy that bike, we all had to work for the Unseths all summer. And therein hangs another tale. They had the worst.
Therein hangs another
They
tale.
had some of the worst berries that I've ever seen. Shriveled up little things. Okay,
It's too bad Grace isn't here because she has a little story about that too.
What's
Oh,
next?
sure
Well,
she
Grace was, Grace was always such a good worker.
Yeah, she was.
Oh,
She still
worked
is.
her head off.
Well, she and Mark
And
both
I-
would rather work than to do almost anything else.
That's right.
Because I can remember when I paid Martin to do my chores for me, and I thought afterwards, what a waste of money, because he probably would have gladly done nothing.
Not gladly. Probably would have been sorrowfully, but he would have done it because it had to get done, you know.
Well, I can remember his crying when we left the farm. Boy, he was broken up. When we left
Really?
badly. He I don't know why you've got that on Harold when I'm doing the talking. You're sitting there sleeping, and the thing is running on Harold. and
Well, I'm going to be the star of this show. So I
Well, we're trying to build you up to it.
Am I getting your good side?
You're fighting it today. Maybe this is a
You know,
bad day to do this.
we forgot makeup. We haven't got our makeup on.
Well, that's what's bothering you.
Yeah.
When you shaved, I thought that was good enough. Well, anyway, I want to put a couple little items on here about Mark because someday he may have enough time to watch this. And one of the things that I remember about Mark was that because I always had a glass of water by my bed because I always slept with my mouth open because my nose always got plugged up at night and I couldn't breathe and my throat would get so dry. Now, I have improved that situation lately because I'm starting to wear these little strips, these Breathe Right strips on my nose, and it's helping a lot. Well, anyway, back in those days, I always took a glass of water and put it on the nightstand by my bed. And so Mark, it wasn't long before, when he was just 4, 5, 6 years old, he'd always go and get a glass of water and take and put it by his bed at night because he had to do exactly what his daddy did. And the other thing that I remember about Mark, which Mark may or may not remember, was that whenever it was time to put him to bed, I always used to say, "Well, it's beddy by time for the left fella," and I'd say that every night. I'd say, "Beddy by time for the left fella." Then I'd go and get him and put him to bed. Have you got some stories like that to tell?
No. Let's see your legs here.
He is dry today. I'm trying to prime the pump over here.
You know what this
And,
is like?
this-
This is like the water world. This film that costs too much money and is 2 hours too long. That's what the problem is. Like War and Peace.
Well, you see, you're getting Helen laughing. Maybe this is the appropriate
Let me
time
see.
for me to bring up this about that I told Helen the other day because I came in here. We were talking about what we were going to do with you, and Helen was changing the schedule for the umpteenth time about when we were going to Karen.
Oh,
and
dear,
she
you
says,
put that in
and she
there.
says, "Do you think we can get Harold to do that?" And I said, "I don't know." I says, "I can't control him completely until he moves in here." I didn't put the emphasis on the right word. The emphasis is supposed to be on completely. I've always wanted to be a thespian, but I've always been so scared to be in front of people. This, back
What's
there.
that word?
Thespian?
Yeah.
You don't know what a thespian is?
No, I sure don't.
It's a kind of a pheasant.
Does that have anything to do with fit?
No, it's,
That's good. That's a good line.
yeah, that is.
No, a thespian is an actor.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thespian. Ja, boy. Ich habe nicht vergessen.
You heard about Claude Pepper and that other guy down in Florida, didn't you?
What about him?
Well, they were in this knockdown, drag-out fight for Congress, and he went